Hello and greetings to my fellow people in the name of Jesus Christ. My name is Brother Marcel Vasquez.
And I'm Brother Chris Frosty.
And we're here to share our testimony on how we got touched by the blood of Christ and how we completely changed our lives around.
Yeah.
So, about me, I work in a gym. I've been a personal trainer for years. Changing people, changing bodies. Fairly successful at what I do. Built a good life for myself. But leading up to this point, I felt very empty. I felt like what I had wasn't enough. I felt like everything I did wasn't enough. I felt a lot of emptiness from certain things in my life. Even though we feel that things are good to what we know in this life, we can still feel down. We can still feel depressed from work. We can feel like what we're doing in this life, just you don't understand. And you really don't have a place. Even though you have everything on this world, but you still feel empty for something. And I had a bad day at work one day and didn't understand what was going on. Thought it was my water intake because I'm very fitness, savvy, we could say. And I first thought it was my water intake, drank water. It wasn't that. I thought it was my food intake. Nothing could really fill that void what I felt for that day. It was a lot of anxiety, depression, so many different little things that I didn't normally feel. But this particular day, I went home from work and you know, all my trainers says, man, what's the matter with you? Usually the highest energetic guy in this club, you know, and you really, you know, touch a lot of people and people love when you're just energetic in this place. And I just wasn't feeling myself, and it had been happening for a couple days. And I went home. I took a shower, a long shower. Didn't really feel good at all. I still felt all the same feelings that I still had. Were just like a dark cloud, like those cartoons where you're walking around, that dark cloud over you all the time. That's kind of how I felt. And I remember I went in the garage and I got a German Shepherd and I was gonna let him out, and I went outside in the garage and I opened the door, and I heard something in my mind, and he says, just call out to me. Just call out to me one time and see what happens. And I says, call out to you? Call out to who? And at this point, I'm kind of puzzled. So I open the car door. You know, in my garage, I open the car door. I sit in the passenger side, and I'm sitting there, and I really don't know what's going on. And I hear it again. I says, just call out to me one time. And I says, okay. I says, God, I don't feel well today. I feel depression. I feel hopeless. Yeah, I got a great house. I got a wife, kid, 2 cars in the driveway. I just don't understand what's going on with me. I feel broken. At that particular moment, I was sitting there, and it seemed like it only took 20 seconds, but my arms started to open up. My arms started to open up, and they started to close. And as they started to close to here, I broke down. And I remember I was crying. I was crying so much. I almost felt relief. I felt relief of all them feelings that I was telling you. I'm hopeless, direction, everything, anxiety, fear, everything that I've ever had in life that every man has, completely crumbled. And I felt like a little baby. And I don't cry easy. My dad was in the Marines, and he was real tough, and you know, we were always tough growing up, you know, prideful guys, you know. And that pride just got broken down into nothing. And I'm sitting there bawling my eyes out. After that, I felt my arms open up, and I felt that presence leave, and almost felt like that was God for a second. After that, I seen a light, and it was coming from the sky, and I could almost see through the garage, and it was coming through the garage. It was coming close through the roof of the car, and I remember I got startled, and I'm like, man, this light is so bright. I jumped in the back seat of the car, and I jumped in the back seat of the car, and I remember the light was coming so bright, so close to me. There was a jacket, and mind you, it's hot out. It's July 3rd. I'll never forget this day. Praise God in my life from now on. And I had this jacket in from wintertime. We're in Minnesota. It gets cold up here, and it gets real humid in the summertime. I grabbed this coat. I put it over my face, and I'm terrified. At the same time, I'm still crying. At this point, I'm sitting there, and I got my head down, and I'm sobbing like crazy, and I feel a hand come on top of this coat, and it's such a soft, touching hand, and I almost felt like I was being comforted. At that point, I felt the hand move the coat, and it was moving the coat so slow and so gentle. And I'm sitting there, and my face is on the ground, and I felt a hand, really light touch of a hand, and he grabs me, and he starts to lift my face up, because at this point you're so shameful. You're so shameful of all the feelings that you had, pride being the biggest one, and it completely just broke me down. And as my head was being lifted up, I didn't want to open my eyes. I hear a voice say, "Marcel." And I says, wow, he knows my name. And I says, yes. And he says, do you know who I am? And I says, I believe so. And he says, I need you to tell me. Tell me, who do you think I am? And I says, I think you're Jesus. And he says, yes, I am Jesus. And from that point, I'm crying again. He says, lift your head up. And I lift my head up. And he says, do you know why I'm coming to you? And I says, no, I don't. And he says, I'm coming to you because you're a child of God. I'm coming to you because those who serve before you are with me in heaven. And right away, you know, he puts messages in your heart to your mind. And I thought of my great grandma and my grandma who really did a lot for churches, did a lot for ministries, did a lot for homeless. They were the type of people that let you in and feed you and keep letting you in. And right away they come to my mind, and I says, wow, that's just incredible. And he says, I'm coming to you because I want you to follow me. He says, do you want to follow me? And I says, yes. And he says, do you want to know how to follow me? And I says, yes. At this point, I started feeling myself leave my body. It almost feels like an electricity, like electrodes are going through your body, and you can't really control. He's controlling everything of you. And I remember coming out of my body, and he takes me up, not too far away from where I'm at, and he shows me a video screen, and it's a video screen of me when I was a kid. And he says, and everything, it's like he knows everything. Everything that ever happened to you, everything that when you were a kid is a recording of yourself. And he says, do you remember when you were this age? And I'm sitting there little, and I'm running around. And I says, I do remember that age. And he says, do you remember feeling alone? Do you remember feeling abandoned when you were little? At this point, I'm thinking, I do remember that. You know, my dad was in the military on leave all the time. My mom was working all the time. I was with my uncles and stuff, and I remember feeling alone a lot. And I says, yes, I do. And he says, do you know that every time you felt alone and you went outside to play, and things might have happened to you, like you might have fell or anything. You might have fell out of a tree because you were being mischievous because nobody was watching you. He said, I was with you that whole time. That whole time, since you were little, I've been with you, guiding you and keeping you away from moments that could harm you. And at this point, you start thinking of all the things that you go through. And I grew up in the inner city. kind of a rebellious kid, getting in trouble with the law, stealing and all this other stuff. And you start to remember everything that happened in your life that you questioned and said, I wonder what that was. Wow, that's coincidence that I just ran into this guy and he knew my uncle and he helped me and took me down the block when I was lost. Anything like that. He started just putting absolute confirmation that that was him guiding those areas. And I remember I kept falling down and crying. And I was falling down and crying because I felt so embarrassed. I felt so shameful that here we have all this pride in our body, thinking that everything that we have until this point, all the things that I've been through, from being in trouble with the law to jail to now having a successful life, is all done because of him. And it makes you feel so, again, so shameful. And I really stress that because a lot of people out there, and I'm sure you are too, feeling these certain feelings that we're feeling inside, no matter what it is. And I kept crying so much. And he was wiping my tears a lot. And I just kept sobbing. And he says, do you want to know what it is to follow me? And I says, I do. He says, well, I'm going to show you two ways. I'm going to show you life, and I'm going to show you death. And I said, okay, Lord, I'm ready. He shows me life, and he says, you can choose this way. And what he showed me was peaceful. It was harmony. It was joy. It was love, and it was everywhere. And I says, Lord, this is the wonderfulest feeling that anybody could ever have amongst everything that I feel here on earth, even with me having everything. And next he showed me death, and he showed me the world. And he says, you will get better in this company. You will climb the ladder in this company. You will be very successful. But the more money you get in this company, the more further away you'll get away from me. And he showed me, and again, I work in a gym, and he showed me women. He showed me lust. He showed me money. And he says, yeah, you're going to have all this stuff if you do it your way. And he says, but you will fall out of love with me, and you will lose your soul. You will lose this feeling that I just showed you. And at this point, I'm turning my own head. At this point, he didn't turn my own head. He let me turn my own head. And I got from that, and me and Brother Chris talk about this quite a bit, is free will. He gave me free will to choose and look in the direction that I want to go. And I remember, and I looked away from it, and I said, Lord, I don't want none of this stuff. If you were to strip me right now, if I can have this feeling, I will take it right now. And he says, I can't take you now. He says, I know you love this, and I know you love this feeling. He says, but you have to turn away from everything that you are. And I choose to live. And he says, if this is your choice, you have to serve me. And I says, whatever I have to do, Lord, I will do. At this point, he says, well, I'm going to give you time now to ask me anything that you want to ask me. And at this point, folks, listen, you can imagine how many thoughts are going through your head. And I'm thinking of so many different things. And I thought of this YouTube video before I was researching things. And this is what kind of led up to it, because I'm feeling all these feelings that I'm telling you guys about, which is making me seek, which is making me research on the internet of different things. And I came upon a testimony of a guy that had a vision, and the Lord brought him up and showed him a watch. And there was no time on the watch. So I says, Lord, and I don't know, it's the first thing that came to my mind. And I said, Lord, I seen a video of a man that you took up and that you showed a watch that had no time on it. And I says, what did that mean? And he says, well, look at your wrist. And I looked at my wrist and I said, Lord, there's no watch. And he says, do you know why there's no watch? And I said, no. He said, because there is no time. He said.